By the way, have you been getting any spontaneous signals as I've been talking? Because I'll tell you what, okay? Hopefully, see, what I'm seeing is that there's a lot of people who are very superficial with manifesting. And they run around looking for just a little better lesson on manifesting because they want to manifest money or something. And a lot of them are broke and they're not great manifestors anyway, you know. And they listen to the movie and they don't do lesson one, and they just really don't know what they're getting into. And they're just, it just never happens for them. So, but, there's nothing I can really do about that. I'd like to be able to help them, but you got to be able to help yourself. God helps those who help themselves, especially at the dinner table. Brumph. Especially at the sushi bar. Okay. You see, the thing about getting signals, okay, is you can't just get them. That's not good enough, okay? You've got to interact with them. You have to interpret them. You have to ask questions like, about what the signals mean so that you can see from those, from those interpretations what further signals to seek. What is the next question that you need to ask, the next action you need to do, and see if you get a signal that you've successfully done that action, and so on. Because, speaking of manifesting, manifesting is a very simple thing. You can just say, I'm now attracting money to myself, and if you get a finger movement, or a good feeling and or both, and see what you want to get is the good feeling. You've probably done that, all other things being equal. But see, now the question is, are you hosting some kind of spiritual disease, let's say, that's interfering with you manifesting money? Is that possible, Often when people are complaining, and they say, I want to do this thing, but I don't have the money to do it. See, I've always had all the money I needed to do what I wanted to do. And I didn't have any money. But there, huge house, big staff, new cars, plural. Like here, I'm sitting here with this camera and so on, and putting this stuff up on YouTube. And plus, we host our own movies. We don't have to make YouTube movies. We have a media server that we can host our own movies. But people find us through YouTube. The other day, actually it was a while back now, this woman wrote to me. I always use her as an example, but there's lots of people like this woman. She wrote to me frantic. Her father just got diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. She found us through YouTube. So we make YouTube movies, that's why we do it, And YouTube is just another thing I manifested. See, we've got to also be able to recognize what we manifest. And you know what? I better tell you this story because I think you'll understand a lot from this story. And it's about Jackie Buzan, who was an absolutely gorgeous woman. I mean, beautiful. She had thick black hair and she was gorgeous, olive skin, Oh, man. And she was my volunteer for years. She first did my course on The Secret, which we didn't call it The Secret, by the way, back in those days. But that's the term you understand, so that's why I call it The Secret now. Plus, I sort of got into it. I love it. I mean, Rhonda Byrne is wonderful, coming up with that, The Secret. That's great. Because that's what everybody always asks. What's the secret? What's the secret of life? What's the secret of getting what you want? So, hey, right, that's what it always was, Anyway, she first did my course, I guess it was in 81. She died in the winter of 86. And she was my volunteer the whole time, right up to her death, and my student. And she was also the only woman I ever had an affair with, up to that point anyway, who died. That was a major rite of passage for me. Oh my God. Wow. And Jackie, she was a manifester. You know, for one thing, just in terms of her career, Jackie was the doctor who ran the cancer support groups at Pennsylvania Hospital. She had her mastectomy probably a year or so before I met her. And she had every form of medical help you could possibly have, all the best. So she manifested that. She manifested the career of her dreams, because this was, you know, there were no cancer support groups before Jackie. Jackie used to go on talk radio and local TV in Philadelphia talking about her cancer support groups. That was back just when cancer support groups were getting started. Now all hospitals have them, but back then this was a cutting-edge program. You know, and she had all the money she wanted. And she just could, well, I'll tell you what, she was trying to cure the cancer with diet. Might have worked, but there was some kind of an emotional disease she had, and it caused her to break her diet. Now, we don't use diet to cure cancer, okay? I mean, we do, you know, I mean, a lot of people who, you know, cure cancer with, in the cure drive, they do diet as part of their, you know, their cure. But I don't really do a whole lot with that. I don't know a lot about it. See, I cured herpes. I had two kinds of herpes, HSV1 and 2. I cured them both, you know. This was in 1993. I had herpes for 28 years. I got it in 66 from a nurse. Anyway, so I was having herpes outbreaks for quite a while. And, you know, that's how I found out you could cure things. I cured my herpes. I was in the middle of a big herpes outbreak, and I suddenly thought to ask, you ever feel like an angel was pounding her fists on your back? Hey, you! You know, that was the experience. That's what it was like. And anyway, I took it out and never had another outbreak. So that was my thing. So I, you know, I encourage people to do ancillary things like diet or even drugs if they want with cancer. But, you know, then a lot of people just cure it without anything. They just do it. They just cure it. But she had a dietary approach, and it might have worked, but she had some kind of an emotional thing that kept her to go. It caused her to keep going off her diet. And just to illustrate a little more about what a manifester she was, I had a course I started right before her death. And at that point, she was weak, but she was still coming, you know, to the assistance meetings. And when I started this course, she stood up in the assistance meeting and she said, "I am going to be in the intensive. I want to be." And she declared. She like put it out to the universe. It's just exactly what Rhonda Byrne talks about. It's how you do it, you know. And there were like 100 people listening, and this other woman, her name was Leslie Dolan. I'll never forget this. Leslie stood up and she said, "I will take responsibility. No matter how bad this cancer gets, as long as you're alive, I will take responsibility for having you in the intensive if you want to be there. I'll be there for you." And one thing Leslie did is she decided that she was going to make the intensive as great as possible. And she got on the phone and she registered like 30 people for it, you know, herself. We ended up with about 100 people in it. All my courses were always small, you know. Anyway,